Okay, welcome to the after show. Okay, and we are still here with Mark Ebner. Sorry, my friend.
Okay.
Really cool guy. A lot of great books, a lot of great information. We're going to have some callers calling in, too. We got one guy here just called in, 818. Let's see who this is. And I want to ask Mark about the Dahlia DiPolito book and her husband.
Hello?
Hey, what's up? This is the Opperman Report?
The what?
Forget it. I guess it was a wrong number.
Nice try.
Yeah. Well, the guy was calling. Yeah.
818, that's the San Fernando Valley.
Well, the guy was calling in through the whole show.
Yeah.
Anyway, so listen, Dahlia DiPolito. What is the story with her husband?
Well, the husband, Mike DiPolito, basically, I met him. I talked with him at length, basically, this is a kid who came up, on the wrong side of the tracks in Philadelphia, had to survive. He slanged drugs. He did whatever he could, and he fell in with the wrong element. He got addicted to drugs. He, took his street education, and like a lot of criminals do, he parlayed that into one of these boiler room operations, selling false securities or whatever it was. He was like a mini, Wolf of Wall Street type character, basically stealing people, money from, pension funds and things like that. And, he got popped. He did a couple of years in the feds down in Florida. He got out. He was determined to go clean. Like I say, he's a very nice guy.
Okay, but wait a second. Even that case, though, okay? He only got caught stealing like $120,000.
Yeah, it wasn't a big deal, but
yeah,
fully admitted to it,
So he gets 2 years on that, and then they give him lifetime probation?
Well, 30 years probation, something like that. Far too long.
Yeah.
But, and that means he's got to stay in that sinkhole, that swamp with two beaches on either side of it, the home of the newlywed and the nearly dead, Florida. He's stuck down there as much as he likes the sun and steroids and tanning and looking good and doing everything else. The problem is he's in Florida that breeds these hothouse flowers like Dahlia DiPolito. So he's trying to go straight. He has a job. He's desk jockeying somewhere near West Palm Beach. And he gets a wild hair up his butt, and he decides he wants to, check the back page and find himself a little sex for the afternoon. Who does he find? He finds Dahlia DiPolito under one of her nommed sexes, and she's basically a call girl. And he comes over and, without swearing, I'm sure the situation was he plowed her over the desktop. He enjoyed it. He wanted more. She saw something in him. She saw that, he had some assets, and we're not talking about big money here. We're talking about $250,000 liquid in the townhouse, maybe, whatever, the facts are all in the book because I did this book with the woman who prosecuted the case, Elizabeth Parker, former, assistant state attorney down there in West Palm Beach. And she was very smart. And, she kept every single document and every single tape. And, the beauty of doing courtroom reporting, which was something that I really learned on the job, is when you do a book like that, whether you're Jose Baez and doing that case or whatever, you get to put the stuff in the book that wasn't heard in the courtroom. And that's what made the story. What a treacherous, horrible cretin this woman was, because she shows up, he's her trick, and she systematically, in the short time that they were married, manages to take all his money from him, get the house, and then set him up time after time after time again to try and get him arrested. And and throw him back in prison. She does everything to ruin this guy. And ultimately, she was just such a poisoned individual.
Wait, what was all that business about them negotiating about a key to a safe deposit box?
Oh, God, everything. Everything was in there, And, I will suggest, I hesitate to talk too much about, some of the plot points that are in the book, because, I'd love people to buy it. They can Kindle it real cheap, and it's, it's just one of those true crime reads that you just shake your head and you just say, oh my, how, who breeds, sociopaths like this? And, and how do guys get involved with them?
Yeah, and why did he stay with her?
Well, I think the book begins and ends with sex. I mean, the guy had done some time. She showed him some mind-blowing prowess between the sheets. He bought into it. As much as he was into, his own suntan, he looked good with this dusky Peruvian chick on his arm. And, he just got blindsided. I mean, we have allegations that she tried to kill him by putting poison in his iced tea from Starbucks.
Right.
I mean, she was just relentless. And I was thinking to myself, this Dahlia Dippolito, was so nickel and dime that, this is, if she didn't get stopped and she wasn't, didn't go down for the 20 years she's looking at after appeal, this is a woman who would find another victim and do it again and again and again, because that's all she can do. That's all she knows is, just, latching on like a bloodsucker and, sucking them dry and moving on to the next one.
Yeah, that whole thing, from start to finish, that case was fascinating.
Oh, yeah, with the cops cop show being invited by the police to watch the sting operation on her, hiring a hitman who turns into an informant for the local Boynton Beach Police Department. I mean, it was just a comedy of errors and fools and everything else. And one pretty smart, relentless state's attorney named Elizabeth Parker. Yeah.
Hey, people in the chat room are asking about Andrew Breitbart. Like a lot of people are suspicious about the circumstances of his death. What do you think?
I understand that. Once again, I'm not a conspiracy-oriented guy. I think that in many ways, to be poetic and, express my love for the guy, I would say, what, his heart was just too big for this world, and it burst at the wrong, at the prime of his life. And I'm saddened forever by that. Two guys with politics, on polar opposites, become such good friends. It's just one of those things. He had a lot of yes, he recognized, the trick is about Andrew Breitbart was that he, with all the Tea Party stuff and all his, and everything that he was doing towards the end of his life and how bombastic he was, there's a lot of stress that comes along with that. And God knows he may have had a heart issue prior to that. I'm still friendly with his wife, Susie Bean Breitbart. She's a wonderful woman raising his, I believe, 5 children he left. And it's absolutely tragic. Do I think that he was off? No, I don't think so. I just think that, like I said, to your chat room viewers, Andrew was a great guy and his heart was too big for this world. A lot of people hate him. They allied him to Ann Coulter, but they forget one thing. The Ann Coulters, the Rush Limbaughs, the Andrew Breitbarts, the Matt Drudges. These people are entertainers. They are here to entertain you. If you don't like what they're saying, turn it off. Don't listen. You see what I'm saying? People fail to realize that they become very good at what they do. And he always wanted to be a pundit. And my God, he succeeded at that, did he not?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Andrew, I don't know. He died too soon. That's all I can say to that question.
We got Christian Wallace, one of my regular callers. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Hey, Ed, I'm enjoying the show.
Thank you.
Hey, Mark, I had heard you a while back on Media Mayhem talking about Scientology, and I thought it was really informative, really interesting, and I was a big fan of Andrew Breitbart, and we were just talking, Ann and I were saying that I think also the coroner that, looked at the body. I know you don't want to go down the conspiratorial.
No, it's okay.
But I think something happened with him, and it was pretty fishy. But one of the things that I think is interesting with Scientology and the tie-in to, or maybe you could elaborate more on the work you did with the South Park behind the scenes a little bit.
Oh yeah, that's fun. That's actually a great question because people love to know, how these shows are made and how they can be so topical from week to week. And that is, well, Matt Stone and Trey Parker are geniuses, but B, it's very interesting. I'll give you a little behind. They called me in based on, having read Do You Want to Buy a Bridge and seen my other work, and they called me in, they were going to do this episode. And, this was a big controversy because remember, Comedy Central is owned by Paramount, and Paramount was Tom Cruise's home studio. Fortunately, going into their 10th, umpteenth season, Matt and Trey had power, and they would take on anybody in their show. And they said, you know what, we're taking on Scientology. They brought me in, and what they did was they had me tell my story, and they record our entire conversation. And then they have this technology that automatically transcribes the recording. They take that out, and they basically cut and paste the script to their characters, And it's an amazing way they do their work, but they literally they have the stock animation. They have, everything ready to go. It's a one-stop shop at South Park Studios, and they can turn around an episode in 48 hours if they have to. And that's the secret to their source. They're really, really good at what they do. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, then that's how they manage to stay so topical.
Yes, exactly. And by the way, I'm not going to dismiss the conspiracy theories around Andrew Breitbart's death out of pocket. The one I heard was that he was at a bar in Brentwood and someone may have put a drug that can't be detected, something that'll stop the heart. I did hear that one, but then on the other hand, it's like, I don't know, I turned dead for that. Is there a drug that can't be detected?
Oh, yeah, there's all kinds of stuff they could do.
Yeah, well then, hey, maybe it was something more nefarious than that. But, with all due respect to his wife and family, I'm going to stay away from speculating and just say that he died too soon. Yeah.
I think that's the safest bet, is to stay away from speculating, and
Sure.
We should all just sort of try to stick to what we can prove and not spread too many rumors because, then people they don't remember where they heard what from, and
Right.
all too easily we can fall into that. And if we want to be respected and have these things, like you said, the advocacy journalism that's so important to. It's funny that you mentioned the dog fighting rings and breaking them up, because for some reason, I don't know what led me across that today. I just happened to stumble upon a story about one, and I was thinking about how awful it was. And, that's somewhere where these kinds of things, the fun of them are, when you get into the dirt with celebrities, is they have these images that they present to the public, and then, it's fun to kind of rip back the curtain and see them, for what they are, and, kind of rake the muck sometimes. But it's also good to expose things that are, like you said, the difference between a religion and a cult, where they don't have a choice. And when you're going after Scientology, the way that they destroy people's lives in that cult, and how literally 30 years, and they rip husbands and wives apart, and children, and they have like forced labor camps, basically, or Scientology education centers, and
40 cents an hour.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and you're definitely, your name's Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're really well versed on, how it all operates and the infrastructure, and it's just so evil at every turn, and, so there's a great pleasure that comes along with being part of bringing down a cult like that. In the same way it is, bringing down people, cowards who fight, dogs. It's all the same to me, and, these aren't things you learn in J school. I never went to journalism school, but I do have, if I do have a moral compass, it's the compass that points me to, things like Scientology and, just reprehensible, people. I'm a magnet for sociopaths, clearly based on our last discussion about poison candy. I find it fascinating. And I get to meet experts who know better than I do about these things. And it's a whole learning curve for me as well, every single time. Yep.
And what a great work it is.
Hey, what about that story about the guy, the kingpin, the marijuana kingpin who owned the gyms and stuff?
Oh, yeah. Rick Doremus, another one of my buddies who passed away.
Oh, my God. Yeah, you know what?
That guy would take a bullet for me. Rick Doremus, real simple. He worked his way from, running kilos from Vancouver, which is Bud Central, down the I-5 corridor to the point where he became the kingpin. And he was running all of it. And basically what happened was he got popped. He lived up in like this Tony Montana mansion with hidden rooms and all that kind of stuff up in off Mulholland Drive here in the hills. That guy got popped. And, they back roomed him and they said, listen. And he said, listen, what? I'm not giving up any of my people, not my drivers, not my crew. And they said, well, then you're looking at 30 to life. And then he goes, just kill me now, and essentially he, had kind of a breakdown over all of this. And they said, well, we got a bigger idea. We want to go after, the cartels. And, people think that, harmless Bud that comes down and hits all the marijuana clinics up and down the coast, they think it's all harmless. Well, the DEA, the reason why the feds and the reason why marijuana isn't becoming legally so fast at the federal level is you talk to any DEA agent, they'll show you and demonstrate how marijuana importation is hooked up with the cartels, because the money, the proceeds that are going back to Canada aren't coming back in U.S. dollars. No, it's bricks of cocaine. So Rick Doremus, the rat, as I called him in that story for Maxim magazine, said, wire me up, let's go. Let's work off my time. And he did. And he busted up the Asian triads, the Mexican cartels, and he did this for the feds, and he worked off his time to the point where he ended up working for the feds. And they basically, in his later years, before he passed away tragically too soon, they had him lecturing to new recruits, DEA recruits, several times a year down in Orange County. And it's just an amazing story. And it's very polarizing because you get all these bros on the internet that are like, oh, he's a rat. Yeah, like you had the balls to be the kind of guy that he was. Rat. What are you going to do when you're looking to 30 to life?
Everybody rats. Everybody makes a deal.
Let's put you to the test.
Yeah.
And find out what you think are rats when you become one.
Well, and you were even saying you're working on an organized crime case right now up in Rhode Island. Even those guys make deals.
Oh, yeah. All the time. All the time.
Well, what do you call it? I got a really bad feedback from somebody. I think it's coming from your...
I apologize. One second. Let me just plug in something in here.
What are you building a house over there? What are you doing?
I know.
It's taking his computer
apart.
I was
having a technology issue here, and it's going to be resolved
okay.
in 2 seconds.
I was going to say, though, that...
okay. I think we're back to normal now. How are we sounding? Any feedback?
Now you sound perfect. But I was going to say, too, that the people who overlook this marijuana smuggling, if you remember the Matamoros murders in Matamoros, Mexico, back in the 80s, where they killed like 30 people on that ranch down there, that was a marijuana smuggling group that did that. So it's not this harmless, just because it's marijuana doesn't mean these guys are harmless. It's not all Humboldt County, yeah.
Yeah, and yet at the same time, I'm the first guy that would tell you, legalize marijuana completely, regulate it, tax the heck out of it, and while you're at it, legalize every other illicit narcotic too, because and drug too, because this war is a big failure, and you know it, and the downside of the DEA in this type of situation is, as much as they make the case, about cartels and the truth behind marijuana importation, at the same time, they'd be out of a job if these drugs were legalized, and as far as I'm concerned, people have the right to do whatever they want with themselves, I don't, listen, go die, if that's what you want to do. I've been around drugs. I've been around drug dealers. I do not like drug dealers, for the simple reason that they're stupid, because it always wills out that every drug dealer I've ever ran into always gets caught. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Only the smart ones come out of prison 20 years later and have the money buried somewhere, but most of them, they just don't impress me,
So this guy, Dano, that you work for, now he was I went to his website earlier.
Yeah, Backstreet Detectives.
I saw it said DEA agent, but he was a DEA informant.
He was an informant.
Okay. I thought it was DEA agent. Okay.
Oh, you go to his house, he has a whole collection of badges, hanging on the wall and certificates and everything else. You know what? God bless him. He's a real character. He's really good at what he does. I mean, I'll tell you this much. This is a guy that, since I hooked up with him, I mean, he's a not so secret weapon, because I need guys with proprietary databases like yourself. Yeah. I need guys who are really good at surveillance, because when you're dealing with criminals all the time and always looking over your shoulder, I also need a 350-pound guy who's fully strapped behind the wheel of our getaway car. When I can work with him, I'll take that anytime, especially when I'm looking at, guys that would kill you to look at you.
Yeah, I noticed that we know a lot of the same people, too, like Vito Colucci and Gina Rodriguez and Violet Cowell.
Sure. These are people that, I've crossed paths with in one way, shape, or form over the years, and thanks to social media, you can stay in touch with these people. I mean, as much as I was saying it was a vehicle to sell books and expand the Ebner brand, if you will, the bottom line is that, it's a good way to stay in touch, no question about it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I noticed a guy on your Facebook page was calling you Smarty Pants today, right?
Probably. I don't know.
The fighting words, man.
Yeah, I mean, I've been called a lot worse. I was called a Zionist and a Nazi today, too. So, figure. My point is that, it's just social media is, the internet to me, I started on AOL like everybody else. And it became the greatest video game in the world because it was interactive, And I like the pot. I like to, set a fire and watch it go crazy. I don't have time to be, arguing and, writing up polemics in 140-word characters for Twitter all day long. But what I have time to do is start the fight and sit back and watch it like Friday night, like Friday night, That's my Friday Night Lights. What can I say? It's a fun thing, and if somebody's pissed off, well, too bad,
Hey, we got somebody in the chat room asking about the Bryan Singer rape scandal. Yeah, go ahead.
Right, Bryan Singer, I've known him since 1994. One of my former best friends was the writer of The Usual Suspects, Bryan's, coming out film, if you will. He had done a film called Public Access before that, but Usual Suspects, I was real friendly, with people close to that film, and I met Bryan, and I liked him a lot. And listen, it was never any secret about what his sexual proclivity is, and will be. That wasn't the issue, but you got a case of a guy, who's claiming that years ago he was sexually abused and enslaved and blah, blah, blah. And he named all these people in the lawsuit, and the statute of limitations had run out for him to do that on the mainland. So he brought it to a place in Hawaii that would still recognize the lawsuit. And from all accounts, they keeps adding names to this sexual harassment suit. He keeps taking names off. I mean, who knows what's going on? Somebody smells a pot of gold at the end of this, and I have the feeling that guy's going to just roll up and give up and disappear. It's a guy who came to Hollywood, with stars in his eyes like everybody else, and I'm just speculating here, but he didn't get his. Nobody, gave him, what he thought he was entitled to. So years later, he wants his. You know what? Show me a shred of evidence that Bryan Singer did anything to you, any of these egregious accusations, and then, maybe I'll take your side. I haven't seen no evidence, none whatsoever. I've written about Bryan Singer, before. There's a story on my website or available on the internet called Naked Shakedown about when he was making that movie about the Holocaust guy. What the heck was the name of that? Apt Pupil, based on a Stephen King novella. He got shaken down because he used a bunch of Catholic school underage boys in the shower scene in that movie that was meant to evoke the gas chambers during the Holocaust. And, being all artsy-fartsy, you know what? Shame on you, Bryan Singer, or whoever hired those kids as extras. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen. You know what I mean?
Okay, but those scenes from that movie were never used. They were filmed, but they were never used in the movie. Am I correct?
Well, yeah, there's the shower scene is in the movie, yes. But at the same time, I can understand that they would be comfortable, but this was a studio. These kids may have been uncomfortable in the aftermath. And when a lawyer, like the lawyer that I interviewed that made the mistake of calling Bryan Singer a pedophile to me on the record, mind you, which I got subpoenaed for later in a deposition, it becomes one of those things. It's a money grab like anything else. It was a shakedown. Bryan Singer I don't know what his intentions were. I just thought, listen, it's a studio picture. He's the director. You've got things in place. You have studio teachers. You have, OSHA people. There was a lot of people there that saw what was going on. And if something untoward was really going on, then the whistle would have been blown a lot sooner,
Okay, I tell you the truth, I'm not even sure who Bryan Singer is,
Ed, can I weigh in on it, please?
Yeah, go ahead, wait.
Okay, all right. Bryan Singer, right? Okay, because you guys brought up the homosexual mafia, and I think that Mark can speak to it without people marginalizing him and calling him, a homophobe. Everyone else that tries, gets just blasted with some sort of epithet. But I'm just going to connect dots of people that he brought. Okay. He does Apt Pupil with Ian McKellen, the guy that plays Magneto in X-Men. Cast him in there. The boy that was in Apt Pupil,
Brad Renfro.
Yeah, died.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then you jump to Usual Suspects, and you have a relatively unknown Kevin Spacey, who then he casts in Superman Returns with Kal Penn, who then ends up going to the Obama White House. You then have which Bryan Singer admitted to, a coming out story in the X-Men films, and saying that was pretty much what the subtext of the movies were about, which then kicked off all of the other superhero movies that are hot in Hollywood now, because, that was sort of a sleeper hit.
Sure.
There was then that led to, I think I said Superman Returns, Usual Suspects. So you got Kevin Spacey, Sir Ian McKellen. You had the girl from Juno, who then came out during the movie premiere for the new X-Men when all of these scandals or whatever, alleged scandals happened. And just a lot of smoke and a lot of people who, might be sort of trade, if I could use some of the slang that they use, and what people have to do for certain parts in Hollywood, and the casting couch applies for the men as well as the women. If you want to speak to it a little bit, and then
I'll speak to it, and I'll say it's the same old story. It's been going on for years in Hollywood. People are exploited. People are, forced to do things that they otherwise wouldn't do. To move up in Hollywood and get cast in the casting couch, like you mentioned, But listen, the blame goes both ways. Who's the adult here? It's sort of like, listen, I come from the stop whining brigade. You know what I mean? There are no victims. These people are volunteers. I mean, and you know, to make all those connections, yes, Ian McKellen, all the, you know, there's plenty of gay connections, but you know what? Bryan Singer, to his credit, trumps everything to the point where, you know, if he wants to cast a gay actor in his movie, he very well can. You know why? Because he's very creative and he's box office gold, despite all these allegations. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, listen, hey, live and let live. You know what? It's sort of like no one can deny that Spacey's not a great actor. I can tell you this, a little tidbit, Unusual Suspects, they had a falling out. In other words, so it's not like, you know, this cronyism. Hell, they weren't even speaking to each other by the end of that shoot. You know, it's, you know, it's, and guess what? It's Hollywood. Gays in Hollywood, please. You know, I mean, it's, you know, to think that there's some sort of a cabal that control everything. Like I said early in the show I just did for the other Revolution with Ed, you know, I was saying the one I regret is gay mafia in Hollywood because, you know, see, the thing is naming names and outing people is one thing, but, and I don't think it's a good thing. In fact, I think a lot of times it's reprehensible because people need to do that on their own time when they're ready. It's not up to me to say who's gay and who's not gay. I was just sick of people saying that there was a gay mafia and not putting names and faces behind it. You know what I mean? But what happened was that story came out in Spy magazine, and real quick, my attitude was, what if there was no, you know, homophobia in Hollywood? There would be no gay mafia. There would be no gay feelings. I mean, gay glass ceilings. You know, I was saying this doesn't have to be this way. Unfortunately, Spy magazine at the time said, Ebner, we're not an apologist magazine. And I think they edited my piece to make it come off like a homophobic screed. And I'm not a homophobe. I only need to say that once. And you know what? I ended up apologizing for it through the gay media, you know, when I was called out on it, you know, for outing people. And I haven't had to do that since, you know. So, you know, in other words, you live and you learn. You regret some stuff. But the rewards are much greater than any regrets I have with my career. That's for sure.
Well, I just want to state for the record that I'm glad you articulated that, and I just want to state for the record I'm not a homophobe either, especially not to the wonderful couple that's looking at buying my father's house down in Fort Lauderdale right at this moment, and I hope they're happy there and they put in a good bid. So.
Yeah, and they're driving the property values.
They sure do. They absolutely do.
Absolutely.
I have many friends that I went in college. That, you know, the one thing I have to say, you know, this was a long time ago, and you know, this poor kid, he was in a dorm, and his dorm mate asked to move out because of it, and he was suicidal. And you know, my wife now, but at the time she wasn't. The two of us, you know, we used to go and hang out with him and pretty much damn near talked him out of committing suicide. So I totally, you know, can understand, you know, where certain people are coming from, and the fear of being outed at certain times might have been, you know.
I would say this. If you're more about just love, respect, and sort of open-mindedness and acceptance of other people's, you know, proclivities and things like that, you know what? You're going to live a longer life, because if you're about hate, you're just going to burn up with it until, you know, it's sort of like, you know, you burn up with it, and you know what? Those people don't feel your hate. You know what I'm talking about? It's like urinating down your own leg. You're the only one who feels it. So why bother? You know, these hateful people I have no use for them because they have no use for themselves, and they're going to die off a lot faster than we are. So God bless you.
Also, I think that something else, because this is a pretty important issue, and Ed mentioned something about, or you said somebody called you a Zionist Nazi or something. You know, I just don't like when people use anti-Semite, racist, sexist, homophobe as a weapon just to shut you up or end an argument. There's an old internet meme, whoever's the first one to compare you to Hitler loses. Well, pretty much it's the same thing with that. You know, just to hurl an epithet at somebody and say, okay, shut up, sexist, because you disagree with somebody, or you know what I mean, when there's a valid or legitimate point. I think that's kind of thing. And the other thing that is going on in Hollywood, I think Corey Feldman, and maybe you could speak to this, brought up, was about some of the underage types of things that were going on. Do you know anything?
Well, I think Corey Feldman, he has a point. He lost his friend, that other kid,
Corey Haim.
Yeah, Corey, the other Corey. I think there is a sad story there, but you know what? Corey Feldman, to me, and this is just my opinion, this is a kid, whose time passed. I feel bad for him. Nobody invested his money for him. Probably has a lot to do with his parents when he was a child star and things like that. It's the same old story. He was exploited by the Hollywood system. But guess what? It's not his fault. It's his parents' fault. They volunteered him for that. They didn't have to do that. And then when he was old enough to make his own decisions, I think the kid was probably too drugged up to be able to understand right from wrong and made mistakes of his own. And now, 30 years later, he's whining and, blaming about being a victim. What I say to him is grow up and, go get a job. You know what I mean? You're not the first or the last Hollywood personality who hit the skids because you didn't invest wisely or you were taken advantage of by a system that by design is there to take advantage of you, to use you until they've exploited their last ancillary market. Hollywood is an awful place when you understand, how much they care about the talent that they're making money off. So it's like, Corey, what are you doing now? You're running sex parties. That's what he does. You want to know what he's doing? You look him up on the internet. It's like, come to my house. We're throwing a party. It's $40 at the door. There's going to be plenty of babes and boobs and things like that. And it's the oldest front for prostitution in Hollywood. You know what's going on at those parties. You pay $40 at the door, and then they've flown in a bunch of strippers for Vegas, who take money on the side in a spare bedroom for whatever else is going to happen.
Yes, so, that was what you brought up. That was really important too. And I think it bears repeating, as well as some of the Scientology stuff. But this, while you brought it up, about a lot of and it's also some of the models too, in the Marc Jacobs catalog, as a matter of fact, how they're pretty much high-priced prostitutes. And do you think that they use them kind of like honeypots to, what would the word be, to compromise people, or do you think it's just a high-priced prostitution ring? I mean, how much of a cesspool is Hollywood really when it comes to the prostitution of the because you see these famous actresses going over, you see singers like Mariah Carey, they'll go over for like a night and they'll say, well, I didn't know the guy was a dictator and all these horrible things about but if you want to speak to that, or
there's plenty of known starlets who make periodic joints to the Middle East, and they turn, six-figure tricks, every other weekend. That's no secret. Also, what else did I want to say about that is, another thing, I don't want to go too off the topic you presented, but what's happened in adult entertainment is quite interesting. Now that, all the porno you could possibly want is available on the internet, adult entertainment has taken a major hit. All these companies like Vivid and, all the company Mega and all the ones that you've heard about through the years. I know them. I'm not, a porno guy necessarily, but, I've been in that world enough to know what goes on. And adult entertainment is now cannibalizing itself, because now what's happening is you have these awful people that have been lurking around adult entertainment who go up to these, actresses, so to speak, these porno actresses and say, hey, look, you're getting $1,500 for, a day's work on a major Vivid production. Come with me. And by the way, here, take this Vicodin or OxyContin because I got to work the drugs on you. and I'm going to be pimping for you, and you can make $50,000 this weekend, and I'm going to ship you off to Dubai. Now, okay, that looks great, right? To the woman who, got into porno for the money in the first place, and the drugs and the fun and everything else. But this Svengali has now addicted her to drugs, which is going to shorten her shelf life, right? And she's got maybe 3 to 5 years of doing that, and then she's not going to bank her money. He's pimping her. He's taking her money anyway. So in other words, now it's this really vicious cycle. And, to see what's happened to people that, kind of canonize the Larry Flints and the Bob Gucciones, and yes, I will say it, the Hugh Hefners, all of them who are, I argue, are pornographers, this is what's happened, and it's pretty ugly.
Mark, have you heard stories of these girls who go over to Dubai and don't come back?
I haven't.
Yeah.
There's a girl who wrote a book about it. She was it was a good book, and I can't remember her name, and I like her, and I wish I could remember her name. But she became part of one of these guys' harems, and she didn't come back for years, because she was on salary. Not unlike Hugh Hefner's harem.
Yeah.
Except you can be sure the Sultan of Brunei is paying a lot more than Hugh Hefner was shelling out to his girls, that lived at the mansion with him, his wives, and that sort of thing. You and I don't get along because I just, I can't stand hypocrisy if it hasn't become obvious yet in this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So where are we at? Dead air?
Yeah, I missed that. What are you saying?
I'm just saying, stop being hypocrites. You're all pornographers.
I'm being a hypocrite?
Not you, no.
Oh.
Hugh Hefner.
Oh, you Hefner? Oh, okay. All right. Let's start out here.
That's why Larry Flint is more of a hero of mine than anybody else. This was the guy who fought for my First Amendment rights and yours. Instead, Hugh Hefner's been running around since the 60s telling everybody he's making art. Come on.
Right.
It's not art. It's pornography. Look up the definition and tell me it's not, And by the way, I've dabbled in it myself. I enjoy naked women. You know what I'm saying? But, now it's really, crossed over into the fact where the erotic arts don't matter anymore, and the exploitative nature of it is killing a lot of, young, eager, innocent, good-looking, women because, of the evil guys, that are peddling in the kind of smut that we see these days.
Right. Like Lawrence Fishburne's daughter, you look at a guy like that who's, premier marquee actor.
Sure.
And the way that his daughter feels like her, foot in the door to get into Hollywood, at least from what I read, she said, was to do, the most, base kind of, just smutty. It wasn't even like the airbrushed, kind of Playboy style, pretense of tastefulness, kind of spread. She just went all out, and then, she gets out of it and says, well, it didn't take me anywhere, but, look at Kim Kardashian, look at Paris Hilton, and the model that they kind of, the business model that they used. And she was kind of thinking that, well, that's what I'll do. And at the very least, everybody else around here seemed to be high paid prostitutes. So, how am I not now famous? And now she's, she has that as her resume. And I'm sure he's not pleased that, his daughter that is now synonymous with, with that.
Yeah, well, you know what I would say to her? Hey, you know what? Maybe your dad wasn't helping you out. Maybe this, that, or the other thing. There are all kinds of social reasons why you ended up where you are. Why didn't you get your butt into acting school and and learn to do something worthwhile? Once again, it sounds like victimhood to me.
Right, and I just want to say, I don't mean to cut you off. I just want to say, I'm all for personal responsibility, That's one of my pet peeves, and I think you're absolutely right. People need to take personal responsibility, and there's a lot of victimhood and a lot of whining and kind of crybaby. This culture of it, and it promotes it, and it's just people have to take personal responsibility, and you can look back at the causes of where you think your life might have gone wrong with maybe you grew up in a single parent household, which is truly devastating. It doesn't matter socioeconomic, intelligence, money. It's actually it is actually more damaging to grow up in a single parent household than it is to have any of those other things. But at the same time, you can look at the causes, but at some point you have to then take the reins and say, okay, I have to take personal responsibility for my actions from this point forward. I can understand what happened to me in the past, but I can't use it as a crutch for the rest of my life.
Right, and and listen to a show like this where we'll lay it out for you. All right, Hollywood, it's pimps and hoes.
Yeah.
Okay, here's your choice. Now, if you're going to take off your clothes, if you're gonna go, beyond the bounds of a hard R rating, and you're gonna do this stuff, then what? You made that choice. Personal responsibility also comes with educating yourself about how Hollywood operates and how it's operated throughout history. Everything has changed and very little has changed. And it all boils down to pimps and hoes as far as I'm concerned.
Let me ask you a question now, because there's a lot of speculation that Will Smith and his wife have become Scientologists.
Well, they certainly were dabbling in it enough to fund a Scientology school that they sent their kids to in the Valley. His relationship with Tom Cruise, unwavering, is an indication of that. The acting out of those children, if you care to look, which I don't care to look, his son and daughter, are talking absolute nonsense on the internet, that kind of smacks Scientological, if you will. If they're not fully in, they certainly have dabbled enough to, put their money behind it for sure.
So then what's your take on this thing with his daughter in that picture in bed with that 18-year-old boy? Or 21-year-old boy, I think he is.
That to me is child pornography.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. That's like Michael Jackson inviting, young disadvantaged youth into his bed. It's the same thing. What's up? My take is it's pretty disgusting, but, again, this is Hollywood, and, Will Smith will have some sort of self-righteous excuse if he's ever called out on it, I'm sure. He is one of the least interesting actors of all time, in my opinion, also.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that,
yeah. He doesn't do it for me. I interviewed his wife a long time ago, Jada Pinkett. She was all right, but she wasn't his wife back then. Now I don't know what's happened. Yeah.
Oh, they're asking in the chat room if you have any kind of inside information on famous murders like the Zodiac or the Black Dahlia or Marilyn Monroe.
Well, one insight I have for the listeners in the chat room is Baba Booey and Howard Stern Howard Stern has a small penis. That said, sorry, I had to get Ed. You had to indulge me there, Ed. Come again with that question. I'm sorry.
Wait, no, real quick. You want to play 6 Degrees of Howard Stern? I did a job
all day long, my friend.
Okay, I did a job for the Howard Stern show once. What's that?
That's Ed's buddy. Yeah. I thought he knew. Yeah. Oh, tell him, Ed. Tell him.
I did a job. I did a couple of jobs, but I did a job for the Howard Stern show once where it was with that guy Jared, and he had they posted up a fake personal ad on Plenty of Fish, and I had to track it down for them. And I needed to hire a model, for this. And so I went on Facebook real fast. I said, listen, I need a model real quick. The pictures is going to be on the Howard Stern show. Get back to me right away. Who comes back to me? Violet Cowell, Mel Gibson's girlfriend.
Really?
Yeah. And we used her picture. I didn't even know it was her. And she said, yeah. And Dan was buddies with her, right?
Yeah, I think so. And here's something funny, a Dano story. Did you know that O.J. Simpson made a porn flick?
You know what? Yeah, I did know that.
Yeah. And do you know who rigged all the cameras for that in that CD hotel in South Florida?
Dano?
Dano Hanks.
Yeah.
And what's beautiful about that story is you talk about the model. I mean, it dovetails off this little Howard Stern anecdote you were sharing, is that he got, I guess they paid. Here's the setup. They wanted to do a novelty porno film starring O.J. Simpson. O.J. said, "Okay, I'll do it. Pay me in advance. I want 50 large. I want cash, right? Because that's how he had to live his life, right? Post civil judgment. So anyway, and my second condition is I want it taped so it appears that I don't know I'm being taped. So enter Dano, who put surveillance cameras in a plant, in a light fixture, all around this hotel suite, right? So what happens is they're taping. They have their control center is the suite next door, right? So they're watching everything on video. So all you see in this porno flick is you see OJ lumbering around, walking around, smoking a joint, cutting himself a line of coke, and these two crack hoe looking.
Yeah, OJ had a big giant fat stomach too in that video.
Yeah. And you see these girls come in, right? And then what happens about 5 minutes into it, about when they're ready to have sex, 10 minutes into it, OJ gets up and he starts ripping the cameras out of their hiding places. Okay? Now, sorry for a second there. Okay, so what happens is he's already been paid, and now he's, cutting, he's taking away the money shot, right?
Yeah.
So the producer is livid. OJ gets out of there with the cash. The sound is still rolling. So he decides he's going to throw one to these two girls anyway. So they have all the sound, the sound recorded of him doing these two women in that hotel suite, but none of the video, right? So anyway, the producer of it was so angry that when all was said and done, he hired a quote-unquote double for OJ, some skinny black porno guy from, South Florida, right? And brought those girls back, and they recreated the sex scene using the actual audio that they managed to preserve. And they tried to sell that as the tape. Well, it was a wash. The guy lost all his money, and once again, O.J. Simpson got away with murder of a different kind, but that was funny,
But anyway, but in a situation like that, O.J. had signed a release, okay, to get the cash.
I'm sure he signed. O.J. doesn't care about anything. Releases, anything. It didn't matter. You saw what he did in Vegas, right up front row center, I mean, he doesn't. The guy has no conscience.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter. You know what I mean? I mean, that's it. That's him in a nutshell. I always like to say nobody gets away with murder, not even OJ, because of where he's sitting right now. It ain't too pretty.
Yeah, but back to peddling these sex tapes, right? These celebrity sex tapes. And in every single case, though, the celebrity signs off on it.
Well, yeah, that's an interesting thing. The one I was talking about earlier, the Eric Dane, Rebecca Gayheart, former Miss Teen America thing. No, that tape, what they did was they ended up suing Gawker. And the claim was that it was copyright. That was the only thing they could sue on. So all of a sudden they're now adult entertainment auteurs, and they were making a film. I mean, it was laughable, and I was named in that lawsuit, and I was laughing my butt off because, it's like, come on, now you're filmmakers. That's how you're going to try and, sue on this. Anyway, there was, I guess what happened was there was a settlement or something like that without admission of wrongdoing. But, there's got to be some sort of legal, a release or model release or something like that.
Yeah, because I've heard stories of major stars with sex tapes out there floating around, but that they can't get brokered.
Yeah, well,
without the release.
Yeah, well, it also depends on who your broker is. There was a guy out of Arizona. I hear he bid it a couple of years ago. Maybe you know his name or your pal there. This guy was ruthless. He didn't care. Any sex, any upskirt shot, it didn't matter. This guy brokered everything, with impunity and no releases or anything. Because the internet was the new frontier, and he found out a way to make money at it. So
yeah, but he went to jail, right?
I think he went to jail. He's dead now.
He's dead. Yeah, even better.
Yeah, that guy was a piece of. That's why I like to, as much as I like to talk about sex tapes, I like to distance myself from them too.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's like I don't want to be a part of that. I'd rather, So there's that.
Well, I think it's just such a phenomenon now all of a sudden because, I mean, look at the Kardashians that don't really have any kind of, discernible talent. And
None.
They literally command covers of magazines, just garner all this attention and, all this money. And it's so ironic because, they have a connection to the O.J. Simpson, family and, Nicole. And then at the same time, you have the father, Bruce Jenner, who, was this gold medal in the decathlon, was it? And they pretty much made all that money off of him and then just sort of discarded him. Now, here's a guy that, you could legitimately say you could make money off of because he's an athlete. He did stuff.
Right.
And, he was an American golden boy, gold medal winner. But then, the daughter was the daughter of Robert Kardashian Sr., who decorated closets. And, what does she do?
Well, I guess here's what it boils down to. You want to talk about a paradigm shift is it used to be that the networks and Hollywood would tell us what we wanted to watch. Unfortunately, and this is a sad testament to the viewing public in this country, now it's the public are telling them what they want to watch, and they want to watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians. So, Hollywood looks at that and says, oh my God, this is so cheap to make. No writers, nothing, just cameras, boobs, big booty, puff daddy, this, that, and the other thing, and it's all stupidity, and you know what? This is what they want. Well, we're going to shovel it at you, and it's unfortunate because we got to look to cable networks and pay cable. We're not. There's nothing left anymore except for the quality stuff that's being made in subscription television. And if you want to look to the good stuff, you got to look to the UK, because I'll argue that some of the best cinema is in British television. I've just had it trying to find anything on networks. I mean, it's like, what's the biggest show? Big Bang Theory? These people are going to make $1 million an episode. That show's still on the air? A show with a laugh track that isn't funny? I mean, we could talk about what we like. I hope I didn't offend Big Bang Theory enthusiasts.
I don't think I've ever watched it.
That's what I'm saying. That's what passes for network entertainment, and it's disgusting. Whereas the good shows, hey, we turn to HBO, Showtime, AMC, IFC, the UK, the BBC. The good stuff is there, but it's being drowned out by the horrible stuff that they can make very cheaply with some very, very cheap, awful people as the stars. What can I say?
It's cheap and it's disposable, and it's almost like with the social media, it's sort of like a feedback loop because they watch the show, they tweet about the show, and it goes back and forth, and it's like a vicious circle.
Yeah.
I was watching Mark Cuban documentary about him and his contributions and how he kind of was tied in a little bit to some of that stuff and up to the minute, like streaming, and what now led to YouTube, and how he sold his stuff to Yahoo, and really it's sort of like with the invention of Twitter, and then with the companies that there's a documentary about marketing cool, and what they would do is they would find kids coming out of school, and they would see unique things that they had done, like with their hair or whatever, how they'd wear their clothes, and then they'd copy that, and it would just be a big circle, and it's like an echo chamber. So there's nothing original. And and the easier it is and the cheaper it is. And I think the first show really to exploit that whole formula was the Real World. And I think the reason they did it was they wanted to do a soap opera, a straight up soap opera, but they just didn't have the money for the writers. So they said, well, let's just film these people and, edit it, and just edit around what, the exciting parts, which is, give them a bunch of alcohol, send them to a club. And inevitably, nothing good ever happens when you go out to a club and get plastered. All that's going to happen is drama. And that's led us to now, the Kardashians, not to beat a dead horse, and also now these housewife shows and, scores of housewife shows and, quote unquote, reality television. Which is
along those lines, Chris, Mark, what do you know about the Anna Nicole Smith story? And all that.
Well, I know what I think everybody else knows. Excuse me. And I don't know much more than that except to say that, listen, she was compared to Marilyn Monroe. She was no Marilyn Monroe. She was, how she got this iconic status, was from, showing off her body and gold digging. I never got the appeal. I know she was, and it's sad that she was, hopelessly addicted to drugs, which ultimately did herself in and her kid. And, she's just a tragic story, but you know what? She's not, I can go to Skid Row to find tragic stories. And I never saw her as any better or any worse than the junkies I see out on the street corner every day.
Yeah, but she has an estate worth $70 million, and one of her boyfriends was argued before the Supreme Court.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and, if I was that, if I was that impressed by money and people's estates, I'd probably have more to say about it, but I'm not a Anna Nicole in the afterlife watcher, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Next topic.
Okay, no, fine. It's
yeah.
What about they were asking about the Black Dahlia and Zodiac and Marilyn Monroe. Anything on those stories?
No, but I would suggest that everybody become a James Ellroy fan, and read his stuff, because it doesn't get better than that. I don't know about the old stories, and and I think I think that the people that do know, just probably prefer the myth. It's like they like they say, if the story's not that great, just embellish, make it up. I don't know. I don't know about Dahlia. But I do appreciate the writers and reporters that devote a large part of their career to that particular beat. There's only so much I can look at, and stuff crosses my desk every day, and I just look to skim off the cream and go deep. It's my deal.
I think the funniest thing about Scientology is that after all that money that you pay, you get the story just like many other orders. After you can pay about $250,000, $250,000,
Right.
Finally, they give you the book that gives you the biggest secret, and the biggest secret is that
the evil Lord Xenu, from the planet Tijiak, otherwise known as Earth, on the island of Las Palmas, otherwise known as Hawaii. I'm just giving the big secret. Here's $250,000. What gets you? This evil Lord Xenu came down and he stuffed a volcano with hydrogen and glycol, some combustible mixture, and he blew it up, and all these little space aliens called thetans got blown around into the Earth's atmosphere, and they attached themselves to us as BTs, or body thetans. And Scientology convinces you that these evil little buggers are, impeding you from your own salvation and your ability to save this planet. So you got to get rid of them. So we're going to kick you up another $250,000, and we'll show you how to get rid of these little buggers that were created billions of years ago by the evil Lord Xenu. This is just bad science fiction. But like I said, when you're that indoctrinated into a cult, you don't know black from white, and I feel sorry for you because you're willing to buy that hook, line, and sinker.
And as Ed was saying about the Nation of Islam, I think it was me, Ed, that brought it up, where Farrakhan was trying to involve himself and talk up Scientology a little bit. The story you were talking about was about Yaqub, the big head scientist, and how he created. That's a whole other wonderful, interesting story that if I paid $250,000 to hear, I'd be pretty pissed. No matter how indoctrinated I was, I think I'd be asking for my money back or cracking some big heads. But no, I think you saved a bunch of people $250,000 right there. So we did that. We accomplished a good deed.
Well, like I said in the story, do you want to buy a bridge? They call it the bridge to total freedom. I take issue with that. I'll call it the bridge to total bankruptcy because that's ultimately where it leads. They're bloodsuckers. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Indeed. Right. So Ed.
Yes.
I got news for you in the after show party here.
Oh, what do you got?
My girl's about to show up with dinner.
Yeah, you know what, man? I got to eat some food myself. Okay, we've been going since like 4:30.
Well, listen, it's been a blast. We'll do it again.
Thank you.
Let me know. Send me the linkage when this all gets ready to view on YouTube and all the other places. And I'll social media the hell out of it. And, thanks for having me on. I really do appreciate it.
No, thank you, man. It's been an honor. Let me tell you something.
Hey, likewise.
And I've been a fan of that book, 6 Degrees of Paris Hilton, for years. And I've been telling that story like it was my story.
Good.
Okay?
It's a great story.
Yeah, it really is, man. Hey, God bless you. Okay.
All right. Take care, fellas.
Thank you, brother.
Right, thank you, Ed. Bye.
Good night.
That was Mark Ebner, an expert on the Church of Scientology. Wrote a big article about Cellular Bridge and Hollywood Interrupted. Okay, someone got me on let me drop okay. Okay, here we are. Okay, Mark Ebner, fascinating guest, man. Thank you, Mark. You can find him on HollywoodInterrupted.com. You can also find his books. They're all on my blog, the Opperman Report. Hollywood Interrupted, 6 Degrees of Paris Hilton, Poison Candy, about the Dahlia Ippolito story. Being Uncle Charlie, which is a fascinating story about some undercover guy up in Canada there that he did a book about. Thank you, Mark Ebner, for coming on. And next week we have Thomas Sheridan about the Jimmy Savile story about the pedophile up there in England who knew all the royals and stuff like that. So that's going to be a nice long show next week. And then after that we have Hart Fisher, who's this guy up in Portland that Keith Davis brought us. and we're going to be talking about all good stuff with him. Don't forget. Oh, but guys, by the way, too. Oh, I had an announcement I was going to make tonight. Okay, if you stay to the end, I'll make my announcement. Okay, it's about Shirley Tripp. Okay, sorry about this, guys. I got some new information about Shirley Tripp. It does turn out that Shirley was abducted. Shirley Tripp is my client who made those accusations against Todd Palin and Sarah Palin up there in Alaska, with the whole prostitution allegations and stuff like that. There was a whole big congressional investigation and a congressional hearing regarding that situation. About a week ago, Shirley went to Piggly Wiggly in Arkansas. No, Louisiana, where she is. She's in Louisiana, just to do some shopping or whatever, and she was abducted and taken to Mississippi, and she was found there in a hospital in Mississippi. All I know for an absolute fact is that she was abducted, for sure. This was a serious crime. She was taken to Mississippi, and she is under police guard in Mississippi right now. She's out of the hospital. She's doing well enough to be leaving the hospital, but she is under police guard. Okay? Now, what I want to I don't have a lot of details on this. A lot of the information coming to me is coming to me secondhand by people telling me to get a hold of Shirley Tripp because she trusts me and I was good for her and all this kind of stuff like that. They're telling me to contact her, find her. I can't. I don't know who to talk to in this whole situation. A lot of people came and went in that story. Okay? So me and Shirley are not in daily contact like we once were. I just want to point out, though, that in my experience with Shirley Tripp, we were in, at one point, constant contact, daily contact, all day long, okay, week after week after week, while all this was going on. I have never known her to be a sensational person that would make up stories or to do a publicity stunt or a hoax or anything like that whatsoever. Never, okay? I always found her to be a very responsible parent. And she wouldn't just take off and leave her kids in any kind of situation like that at all. She was always very concerned about, very detail-oriented in getting the facts out about her story and double-checking things. She on her own, she confronted the Anchorage Police Department. She confronted them and the Internal Affairs Department there and the police chief. Okay, on her own, she did all this. So she's always been a very capable person, a very sober person. I don't know her to be a drug user or an alcoholic or any kind of a fly-by-night kind of person at all. Very, very smart person, very sharp person. So what I'm hearing is that she was legitimately abducted. There's some other stories going around, too, of what could be going on about along the lines of her original accusations. And along those original lines of the accusations that those kind of people could be involved in the abduction and the kidnapping and the injuries. I don't know that to be true, but I do know that it's more likely than not would be that this situation is related to that situation, and that's what I'm going to leave it at that. Okay, so that's my Shirley Tripp update. I apologize for not giving you that earlier. Any parting words from Cindy or Ann or Chris?
Good show. Oh.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, you know my situation. We got the Opperman Fund, Save My Family Fund. If you go to my Facebook page, you could find that. Or if you just go to a GoFundMe and look up Help Save My Family, Ed Opperman. I'm in big trouble. I only got like 10 days left, 12 days left before we go back to court. And I need help, guys. Where
can people go to, Ed?
It's GoFundMe.com. And you can just Google, if you Google Help Save My Family by Ed Opperman, it should come up. And it's on GoFundMe.com. And the link is on my Facebook page as well. And we definitely need your help. Me and my daughter need your help. My daughter has a show, by the way, on CJMarnesRadio.com every Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock. The incredible kid. She's a junior lifeguard now. And we just want to live in peace and not spend the rest of our life in court paying these legal fees and all kinds of crazy stuff that they have us doing. So if you can help us out, I would really, really appreciate that. I've been putting my ass on the line for you guys for a long time here, trying to get this information out to you, doing what I can, and I'm just asking for your help,
Okay.
Chris. Hey, Chris, I'll need your help too.
And when it comes to a sponsorship, because maybe someone else has an idea for a sponsor for you, is the best way to reach you? Should they do it through any special way? Is Facebook okay?
Facebook is fine, or oppermanreport@gmail.com, or you can call me up at 1-800-448-0772. 1-800-448-0772. The deal to buy ads on this show is so incredibly cheap, what we're offering up, that if someone wants to come along and go into business, you could buy the ads from me and resell them out on the open market, and you can make good money. I'm not a salesman. I'm not an advertising salesman or anything like that. We don't have that kind of infrastructure over here at the old Opperman Report. Okay. We can barely, handle our congressional investigations that we're doing, but guys, I'm here for you. Everybody's calling me for advice all the time like that, but I need your help. Okay. Cause we're in trouble. So any last words?
Well, I'm going to definitely try to work on that, and I'll try to shoot you some cash with through the I'll go on Google.
GoFundMe.com. Help save my family by Ed Opperman. Okay. All right, guys. Good night.
All right. Good night.